Hi everyone, my name is Ruthie, and I'm about to tell you the most shocking story of betrayal and revenge that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about family loyalty. After serving my country for 8 long years, I thought I was finally coming home for Christmas to the family that raised me. But just days before my arrival, my own father sent me a message that would change everything. "You're not welcome here anymore." I simply replied, "Fine." But what happened next? Well, let's just say that 14 days later, I woke up to 20 missed calls from my family and one very important call from their lawyer. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why my simple fine became the most expensive word my family ever heard. Before I continue my story, I would like to know where you are chatting from. Leave a comment and let me know what country you're watching from. And if you love revenge stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because, trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. Now let me take you back to the beginning. I enlisted in the Army right after high school graduation. I was just 18, scared but determined to make something of myself. My parents, especially my dad, were so proud. He would tell everyone at the VFW about his daughter serving overseas, how I was fighting for freedom, making sacrifices for my country. He'd show pictures of me in uniform to anyone who would listen. For 8 years, I was deployed to 3 different countries, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Germany. During this time, I religiously sent money home every month, $800 without fail. This wasn't spare change for me. As an E5 sergeant, I was making decent money, but $800 was nearly a third of my monthly pay after taxes. I lived in barracks, ate at the mess hall, and basically had no social life because I was sending most of my money back to help with the family mortgage and expenses. My parents told me how much they appreciated it, how it was helping them keep the house, pay for Jake's community college attempts, and maintain their lifestyle. My dad had been laid off from the factory 3 years into my service, and Mom worked part-time at a grocery store. My contributions were literally keeping them afloat, though I didn't realize how much until later. Meanwhile, my younger brother Jake was living his best life. He'd start college, drop out after a semester, try different jobs that he'd quit within months, and was basically treating our parents' house like a free hotel. He was 24 and had never paid rent, never contributed to groceries, never helped with utilities. While I was dodging IEDs in Afghanistan, Jake was sleeping until noon and playing video games. During my second deployment in Afghanistan, I met Marcus. He was a combat engineer, 2 years older than me, and from Atlanta. We were stationed at the same forward operating base for 6 months. At first, we were just friends. You know how it is in the military, you become family with the people watching your back. But gradually, we fell for each other. Marcus was everything I never knew I needed. He was kind, funny, incredibly smart, and he understood the military life in ways no civilian could. When we were both stateside between deployments, we'd spend our leave time together. He met some of my military friends. I met his. We talked about our future, about what we'd do when we got out of the service. After 3 years of dating, Marcus proposed during our leave in Hawaii. It was perfect. Sunset on the beach, just the 2 of us. I was over the moon. I called my parents immediately, screaming with excitement about the engagement. They seemed happy for me over the phone, asking about the ring, when we'd get married, all the normal parent stuff. I posted pictures on social media, the proposal, us together in Hawaii, normal couple stuff. I was so excited to bring him home for Christmas after my final deployment ended. I had saved up 30 days of leave time, planning the perfect homecoming. I wanted Marcus to meet my parents, see where I grew up, experience a real small-town Christmas. I had it all planned out. We'd fly into Detroit, rent a car, and drive to my hometown of Millbrook, population 3,000. I'd show him my high school, take him to the diner where I had my first job, introduce him to my parents' neighbors who'd known me since I was a kid. I even bought gifts for everyone and had them shipped to the house. 3 days before our flight home, I was in my barracks finishing up my out-processing paperwork when I got a text from my dad. The message was cold and formal, so unlike how he usually texted me, "Ruthie, we need to talk. Your lifestyle choices don't align with our family values anymore. It's better if you don't come home for Christmas. We've decided Jake needs the basement space for his new business venture anyway." I read that message 5 times, sitting on my bunk, completely confused. Lifestyle choices? What lifestyle choices? I was a decorated soldier with an honorable discharge, engaged to another soldier. What family values was he talking about? I called him immediately. My hands were shaking as I dialed. When he answered, his voice was cold, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Dad, what's going on? What did you mean by lifestyle choices?" There was a long pause. Then he said, "Your Aunt Linda saw your Facebook pictures. She told us about your boyfriend." "Marcus? Dad, he's my fiancé. I told you we got engaged." Another pause. "Ruthie, I won't have my daughter bringing a black man into this house. It's not right. It's not how you were raised." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. This was my father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who came to every track meet in high school, who cried when I left for basic training, the man who'd been bragging about my service for 8 years. "Dad, are you serious right now? Marcus is a good man. He's in the army. He's educated. He's kind." "I don't care what he is. I won't have it. You can come home when you come to your senses and end this relationship. Until then, you're not welcome here." I was silent for a moment, trying to process what I was hearing. "What about Mom? Does she feel the same way?" "Your mother agrees with me. We raised you better than this." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just Dad. This was both of them. The parents I'd been supporting for 8 years, the family I'd been homesick for during every deployment, had just disowned me because of the color of my fiancé's skin. "Fine," I said and hung up the phone. I sat on my bunk for an hour just staring at the wall. Marcus found me there when he came looking for me for dinner. "Baby, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I told him everything. I watched his face change from confusion to hurt to anger. But then he did something that showed me exactly why I was marrying him. He held me while I cried and told me that if my family couldn't see how amazing our love was, that was their loss, not ours. We spent Christmas with Marcus's family in Atlanta instead. His parents, Robert and Diana, welcomed me with open arms. His mom cried when she hugged me, saying she was so happy Marcus had found someone who understood his military service. His dad, a Vietnam veteran himself, spent hours talking with me about deployment experiences. His sister immediately started planning our wedding with me. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was part of a real family, one that valued love over prejudice. But I was still heartbroken, and I was angry. If my family wanted to cut me off, I decided I'd respect their wishes completely. The first thing I did was log into my bank account and cancel the automatic $800 monthly transfer I'd been sending home for 8 years. That felt like the biggest step. Those payments represented my love, my sacrifice, my commitment to family. If I wasn't family anymore, why would I keep paying? Next, I blocked my parents, Jake, and most of my extended family on all social media platforms. I didn't want to see their lives, and I didn't want them seeing mine. Then I went to the base legal office and changed all my emergency contacts on my military paperwork. I removed my parents and listed Marcus's parents instead. I updated my life insurance beneficiaries, removing my family entirely. When I got out of the service 2 months later, I didn't tell them. I didn't announce my discharge, didn't send them my new address, didn't let them know about my plans. Marcus and I moved across the country to Portland, Oregon, where he'd gotten a job with an engineering firm, and I planned to use my GI Bill to attend nursing school. For 14 months, I heard absolutely nothing from my family. No calls, no texts, no emails. I assumed they were happy with their decision. I threw myself into my studies, made new friends, and started building a life with Marcus. We set a wedding date, found an apartment, adopted a dog. I was healing from the rejection and learning to be happy without them. Marcus's family became my family. I called Diana Mom and Robert Dad. They included me in every holiday, every family gathering. Diana helped me pick out my wedding dress. Robert walked me through basic car maintenance since my dad wasn't there to teach me. Marcus's sister became my maid of honor. I thought I was over it. I thought I'd moved on completely. Then came January 15th, that morning that changed everything. I was in my second semester of nursing school, studying for an anatomy exam when my phone started buzzing at 6 a.m. The first call was from my mom's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then Jake called. Then my Aunt Linda. Then numbers I didn't recognize. By 7 a.m., I had 20 missed calls from various family members and one voicemail from someone named Henderson and Associates Law Firm. I made coffee, sat down with Marcus, and decided to call the lawyer first. If my family was in legal trouble, I figured I should know what I was dealing with before I talked to them. Mr. Henderson was professional but urgent. Miss Thompson, I'm calling regarding your father, David Thompson. Are you aware of his current medical situation? No, I haven't spoken to my family in over a year. I see. Well, your father suffered a massive heart attack on New Year's Eve. He's alive, but in critical condition at Millbrook General Hospital. He's been in a medically induced coma for 2 weeks. I felt my coffee cup slip from my hands. Despite everything, this was still my dad. The reason I'm calling, Mr. Henderson continued, is that there are some urgent financial and medical decisions that need to be made, and according to our records, you're listed as having financial power of attorney if your father becomes incapacitated. I'm sorry, what? It appears this was set up before your first deployment in 2016, but was never changed. Your father cannot make financial decisions in his current state, and your mother cannot access their joint accounts or make medical decisions without either his signature or authorization from his designated power of attorney, which is you. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same family that had rejected me now needed me to save them. Mr. Henderson explained the full situation. My father's heart attack had happened at home. Jake found him collapsed in the kitchen on New Year's morning. The ambulance, the emergency surgery, the ICU stay, it was all incredibly expensive. But their health insurance had lapsed 6 months earlier because they couldn't afford the premiums. Without my monthly $800 contributions, they'd been struggling financially for over a year. My mother had picked up a second part-time job at a local diner, working nights after her day shift at the grocery store. Jake had finally gotten a job at a gas station, but he was only making minimum wage and could barely cover his own expenses, let alone help with the household. They'd fallen behind on the mortgage, 3 months behind to be exact. The bank had started foreclosure proceedings in December. The utilities were about to be shut off. And now, with Dad's medical bills piling up and no insurance, they were looking at financial ruin. But here's the kicker. There was more. Jake's business venture that Dad had mentioned? He'd convinced my parents to co-sign a $15,000 loan for some kind of multi-level marketing scheme selling supplements. Of course, it had failed spectacularly, and now my parents were on the hook for that debt too. The hospital needs authorization for your father's next procedure. Mr. Henderson explained. It's a necessary cardiac surgery, but it costs $75,000. Without your authorization, they can't proceed, and without your signature, your mother can't access any of their accounts to pay for anything. I was quiet for a long time, processing everything. Marcus was holding my hand, watching my face carefully. What happens if I don't authorize anything? I asked. Well, Your father could die without the surgery, and your family will likely lose their home and declare bankruptcy. I told Mr. Henderson I'd call him back and hung up the phone. Marcus and I talked for hours. He was amazing through the whole thing. He didn't tell me what to do, just listened and asked thoughtful questions. He reminded me that I wasn't responsible for fixing my family's problems, but he also knew that I'd never forgive myself if my father died when I could have helped. When I finally called my mother back, she was sobbing before she even said hello. "Ruthie, baby, please. I know we messed up. I know we hurt you. But he's your father, and he's dying, and we need you." For the first time in over a year, I heard my mother's voice. Despite everything, hearing her cry broke my heart. "Mom, where were you when Dad was saying those horrible things about Marcus? Where were you when he told me I wasn't welcome in my own home?" "I was wrong, Ruthie. We were both wrong. I was scared of what people would think, what the neighbors would say. I know that's no excuse, but I was raised different, and I thought you'd get over it and find someone else." "Someone white, you mean?" "Yes," she whispered. "And I hate myself for thinking that way. I've had a year to think about what we did, and I know we were wrong. I know we lost the most important thing in our lives because of our stupid, ignorant prejudice." She told me that losing me had been devastating for both of them. Dad had stopped talking about my military service to his friends because he was ashamed of how things ended. He'd kept my deployment photos on his desk at work until the day he was hospitalized. Mom said he'd been talking about calling me for months, but his pride kept getting in the way. "Jake told us we were idiots," she continued. "He said Marcus sounded like a good guy from everything you'd posted, and that we were going to lose you forever over something stupid. He was right." I learned that Jake had actually been the voice of reason through all of this. He'd been pushing my parents to reach out to me, telling them they were wrong about Marcus, pointing out how much they missed me. Jake had grown up a lot in the past year, apparently. But I wasn't ready to forgive and forget. I had conditions. "I'll help," I told her, "but things are going to be different. I'm not your little girl anymore who sends money home and gets nothing but judgment in return." I laid out my terms. First, both my parents had to write formal apologies to both Marcus and me, acknowledging their racism and promising to treat Marcus with the respect he deserved as my husband. Also, Jake had to prove he was serious about being a contributing member of the family, not just a mooch. And fourth, I was going to maintain control over their finances until Dad recovered and proved they'd learned from this mess. They agreed to everything without hesitation. I called Mr. Henderson back and authorized my father's surgery. I also used my power of attorney to restructure their debts, set up payment plans with the hospital, and halt the foreclosure proceedings. I moved money from my own savings to bring their mortgage current, money I'd been saving for my wedding. But I also made sure there were consequences. I set up a strict budget for the household. Jake had to quit his gas station job and get a better paying position at a local warehouse. My mother had to keep detailed records of every expense. And yes, they had to pay me back monthly until every penny was accounted for. My father's surgery was successful. He woke up from his coma 5 days later. When my mother told him I'd saved his life and their house, he cried. She said it was the first time she'd seen him cry since his own father died. The written apologies came 2 weeks later. My father's letter was 3 pages long, handwritten, acknowledging his racism, his pride, and his stupidity. He wrote that losing me was worse than the heart attack because the heart attack was just physical pain. But losing his daughter was emotional agony that never stopped. He begged Marcus to forgive him and promised to spend the rest of his life making up for his prejudice. My mother's letter was shorter, but just as heartfelt. She admitted that she'd been a coward for not standing up to Dad's racism, and that she'd let fear of what other people might think cost her the daughter she loved more than anything. Jake wrote too, even though I hadn't asked him to. He apologized for being a burden to the family and for not speaking up sooner about how wrong our parents were. He promised to be the brother I deserved. 6 months later, when my father had fully recovered and they'd proven they could stick to their budget, Marcus and I flew back to Michigan. Not for a visit, for our wedding. That's right. We decided to get married in my hometown, in the same church where I'd been baptized. My father walked me down the aisle, and during his speech at the reception, he publicly apologized to Marcus and me for his prejudice. He told the whole town that he'd been wrong, that Marcus was the best thing that ever happened to me, and that he was proud to call him son. The apology letter is framed in our home office now. Sometimes I read it when I'm having a bad day, not because I want to relive the pain, but because it reminds me that people can change, that love can overcome hate, and that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones worth fighting. I want to be clear about something. I didn't help them to be vindictive or to prove a point. I helped them because, despite everything, I still loved them. But I also made sure there were consequences for their actions, because love without accountability isn't really love at all. The money they're paying me back? It's going into a college fund for the children Marcus and I plan to have someday. Children who will grow up knowing both sets of grandparents. Children who will never question whether they're loved because of what they look like or who they choose to love. Through this whole process, I learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I learned that the family you choose can be just as important as the family you're born into. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and that second chances have to be earned. When people ask me if I'm glad this all happened, I have mixed feelings. I'm glad my parents grew and changed. I'm glad our family is stronger now. I'm glad Marcus is loved and accepted by everyone who matters to me. But I'm also sad about the time we lost. I'm sad about the pain Marcus experienced. I'm sad about the stress and financial hardship my family went through. I'm sad that it took a near-death experience and financial ruin for my parents to realize that love is more important than prejudice. If I could go back and change things, I wouldn't change my response to their rejection. I wouldn't change my decision to step back and let them face the consequences of their choices. But I wish they'd never rejected us in the first place. I wish they'd been excited to meet Marcus, proud to welcome him into the family, eager to celebrate our love instead of condemning it. The truth is, my fine response wasn't planned revenge. It was self-preservation. I was protecting myself and Marcus from people who had shown us that their love was conditional. I was choosing my mental health and my relationship over family dysfunction and racism. The fact that it ended up being the wake-up call my family needed was just a fortunate side effect. Sometimes the best thing you can do for people you love is to stop enabling their bad behavior and let them face the natural consequences of their choices. What do you think? Did I go too far? Or did I forgive them too easily? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life revenge stories that prove karma really does work in mysterious ways.